Hey all, how's it going? All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. I got a few messages last night from folks who were unable to join. Zibyanek, one of our best maintainers, just had a child, a baby, last week or the week before. And then Tom is on baby duty himself, so it seems to be family matters today. And a similar story for some folks at Microsoft. So we might have a little bit of a smaller meeting, but we'll run with it anyway. So I'm just going to share my screen. We'll run through the agenda, and if we have other follow-up items or topics, then we'll grab them as we go. So let me go ahead and share this screen of the agenda. Okay, and I want to see the participants. Yeah, it might just be us three. So I'll go ahead and add myself. So I'm Jeff. Jonathan, good to have you here. Anything you wanted to cover, Jonathan?
I may bring up a topic if there's time.
Yep, I'm sure we all have the time today.
Perfect.
And then Shubham, same.
Yeah.
Any topics you wanted to cover?
No, such.
Great. And then Ritika, I see you just joined as well. Thanks for joining. I mentioned it might be a little bit of a smaller, shorter stand-up today. We've got a bunch of folks who are unable to join, but we'll run with what we can. Anything you wanted to cover, Ritika? Oh, no audio yet. There you go. Any topics you want to cover, Ritika, that I should add to the agenda, or just listening in? You're unmuted, but I don't hear any speaking. So I'm going to assume you are good. And if not, that's fine. Let us know on chat or something. Okay, great. So I'll run through the agenda items that Tom had for us, and then Jonathan, we can go where it is. There is a reference case that we're publishing, which is how Alibaba is using KEDA. I just read through it over the weekend and made some edits. I think Tom's just finalizing it, and it looks like we're going to have the CNCF publish it, which is cool. It probably has much more visibility than just the KEDA site itself. So this has been a good one from Tom, and so excited to see this one go out the door. The use case is pretty cool. It just kind of highlights like, hey, we had cluster scaling, we need application scaling, and Alibaba's baked in KEDA to some of their application platform stuff, which is pretty sweet. Oh, interesting. So I didn't know about this. It looks like we have an annual review with the CNCF. This is something I didn't know about, but makes sense that it looks like Tom has already started running with, which I assume is just like, what's the state of the project? What's the state of the thing? And so it looks like we're working on that. And then shortly after, we'll be spending some time on incubation. So those both sound awesome, especially the incubation. I think for folks in an earlier meeting, we looked through like the criteria, and it's like, hey, do you have activity on the repo? Do you have some people using it in production? Is it documented and all the things? So I think we hit the bar for incubation, but we'll see where it goes. But it sounds like we have an annual review first that we can kind of vet some of that. And then finally, it looks like Tom just linked one issue, which was around tracking integration with other tech. And this is, I guess, similar to the Azure Service Operator. I'm curious on what this is, what they can use with KEDA. I'm just reading this now for the first time, and I'm not quite sure if this is like, hey, if you're using Azure, then here's all the Azure-y things that you can use. Crossplane. I'm guessing Crossplane is some other project that he's saying they're doing this, and maybe we should too. Yeah, without Tom here, I don't know how much. I don't know if anyone on the call is reading this issue and you're having a better sense for what we're getting for. What the tools are that we integrate with and what they can use with KEDA. Yeah, so I think he's thinking that there'd almost be like a page for Azure, a page for AWS, a page for GCP, a page for Alibaba on our docs. And it would kind of say like, hey, are you in Azure land and you want to use KEDA? Here's the integrations that might be best for you. I think that's what he's thinking. Maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if there's much we'll be able to say without Tom chiming in here. Because I don't know how much it has to do with like this actual cross-plane feature. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. So that's it for the agenda. It looks like, oh, sweet. And I think, Jonathan, I assume you just popped this thread. Oh, I'm going to have to open this up in my Slack tab.
Yeah, no worries.
No, that's fine. While I open it up, do you just want to give a quick recap of what it is?
Yeah, and this is sort of the beginnings of what we hope to share in our own explorations of using KEDA. It's from a thread from a while back when I first started poking at it. But TLDR, what we do, we're building an IoT platform, and part of it will have a serverless offering. And so the goal is to have serverless compute in a native IoT protocol, actually multiple IoT protocols. And so what we're trying to figure out is how might we use KEDA to be the autoscaler for this basically custom serverless runtime. And I posted some thoughts of potential architectures we're exploring. We're just at the cusp of actually starting to write some code. But I wanted to, whenever there's a lull in the conversation or an opening in the time slot, just to kind of share, get some early feedback, so we can go and actually try it out and return back with what we found. But the thread, which I if you can't pull it up, I could certainly screen share or something, is taking what we have as well. Actually, if you can get a diagram going, then that'd be easiest.
And it's the diagram in the thread. I was seeing if I could get it open in my browser tab, but I have too many Slack passwords. I couldn't figure it out. So now I just have it open in this one, and I can. So I assume it's in the KEDA channel.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me just go ahead and switch my screen over to show that thing then. Yeah, and this would be great. I'm actually super interested to hear more of what you found and what you've learned. All right. Yeah, so let me. Oh, go for it. I was just speaking out loud as I was sharing this.
It's all good. So a little backstory on our journey so far. We've been trying a bunch of different approaches to serverless prior to KEDA 1.0, and nothing in production. I should be very clear here. And we built our most recent prototype late last year on Knative and ran into issues around protocols. And so with the introduction of 2.0 and external scalars, that means we can really easily prototype our idea of a protocol, an external protocol-based scalar, which is pretty awesome. And so the two diagrams I threw into the KEDA Slack are two potential parallel architectures. One using Ingress v2, which is now I think the gateway API from the network SIG, as the main service that routes requests to KEDA and then does the autoscaling with our own proprietary or custom external scalar. And the secondary is using SMI and custom traffic routes to do the east-west autoscaling. So for full end-to-end, north, south, east, west type of serverless platform. Were you able to get the diagrams up?
I got because I can't open the link in the. It's not opening up my Slack client. Is it in the KEDA channel? I was just searching for posts from you in KEDA and it didn't pop up.
Yeah, it should be there
too.
Okay,
if
great,
you already have it too, let me make sure you have permission to. I'm just gonna make you co-host in case you don't anyway. Oh, great! I see it now. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is a larger version of what's in the Slack channel, but a little bit of that context I just gave. And so the idea would be we have these protocol gateways. And we're building on top of the gateway API, and we have the custom functions written by our developers, our users, and we're trying to design how we should be leveraging KEDA and the external scalar. Since we kind of own all parts of the stack, we can create an event like a request in to a custom scalar at any point. But this is the general architecture. So you can see we have an IoT device, which is speaking some custom protocol that's not HTTP. Going to our gateway, which is doing stuff like authorization, protocol validation, and to be clear, like today, this is going straight to a container. So this would be replacing that architecture. But by using this sort of gateway, we can create a route and we can route to a service, which then ultimately is the user code. And then KEDA can sit anywhere. And so part of my interest in the HTTP work is where we could probably leverage a lot of that architecture and learnings to implement this. So there was not a direct question. Of course, there's a specific one. How might we do it, and how might we best use the new scalar external scalar architecture? I think we know. And similarly, there's a question out to in discussion with the gateway folks. How might we best design our gateway, our gateway v2 integration? But it's just the general use case. Just curious about thoughts or ideas or questions.
This is really good, and I think the point you brought up, which I would just echo, is like I think that there's enough prior art, or even like not necessarily prior art, but like in progress exploration on this type of stuff. To your point around like HTTP, even I know some folks on our side at Microsoft have been prototyping some stuff along with the stuff that's in the KEDA HTTP thing that's doing a similar pattern, which I would, naively just assume like, okay, well, what if you just swap out the things that are doing HTTP with your like custom gateway? I know it's heavily reliant on things like Envoy proxies or Envoy gateways for some of the stuff that I've seen most recently. I don't know if Envoy supports arbitrary protocols or if that's a technology that you've been digging into too. But at the very least, I think I'm going to share this portion of the recording with the folks on our team. Ahmed, I don't think Ahmed's on the call today, because I'm curious if Ahmed has any thoughts, or even if he can just chime in on Slack or somewhere else, because Ahmed's the one on our side who's been doing some of this exploration of like, okay, how could we have routes and HTTP traffic and still leverage KEDA? And it's using like the push adapter for KEDA, where like the gateway actually like pokes KEDA to scale, but then it also dives into the other aspects too. So I think the architecture makes sense. To your point, like the kind of question mark things are maybe things that we might be able to help fill in just based on other work that's happening in the community. But the problem sounds like a good one to solve, and it seems like KEDA would be a natural fit here to do the scaling of the function depending on how many IoT events are coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, it's about the flexibility of this gateway. Right? We want to have, we're implementing idiomatic implementations of these protocols. So we kind of can't leverage off the shelf anything. But the nice part of the design with KEDA, why isn't it centered? That's annoying. My little monkish ADD there, is that we can continue to add new protocols via new gateways and just have a common API for via KEDA, which is super cool. And part of our exploration with Knative, there's a lot of benefits to Knative, and it covers a lot of this area, but it makes it really hard to pull out the networking aspect of Knative.
Sure.
And similarly, some of this routing logic, this is just as another data point. If we can leverage the gateway API as a common way to do ingress, well, then with SMI, they have this concept of routes, traffic routes. And natively, they have HTTP and TCP and UDP. And so we can then again leverage a standard API via SMI to do east-west scaling. So our custom, instead of gateway, is our custom routing, a traffic route implementation can also trigger east-west auto scaling, which is pretty nice. So for example, one service can call another service for batch work or cron-like things. So the vision there is to combine both the gateway API implementation as well as an SMI implementation, so that we can truly get a nice IoT-based serverless offering.
Wow, that's slick. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and I see similarities in terms of the patterns here. So I think it's something that I think you're headed down a good path. Hopefully we're just able to accelerate some of those questions too. So yeah, I'm glad you actually had this on the cuff. This was a good way to kind of fill in some time here where we did have some space in the agenda. And I'm glad we're recording this as well, because I will share this with some folks and say like, hey, are there any pattern samples? Can we even share some of these like prototypes awesome. Out with your team so that you could take a look and be like, oh, okay, this is how they're kind of talking to KEDA and where it pops in and where it doesn't. to serve some of these same things. I don't know if we've actually done the work with SMI, but that vision makes a ton of sense. And I would love to figure out if there's gaps or even things that we can do in the KEDA core project itself that would make that integration pretty slick. That's cool.
To be fair, we're kind of going down recently charted territory with the Gateway API and the SMI traffic specs. However, we've been engaging with both groups, and they've been super receptive and helpful. And it's sort of this potential triumvirate of three, 2 standards and working implementations, and the KEDA project could be useful for a lot of other folks too. So we're excited to see how we can tie that all together.
Great. Yeah, keep us in the loop. I'll follow up on some of these things, and then I'll probably just pop back on. And you mentioned some of this was in Slack. Is it in the KEDA? Is there a thread then in the KEDA one? Do you even know what the date would be for that?
Yeah, let me stop sharing because if I copy and pasted correctly, it's December 3rd, 2020.
December 3rd. Okay, I just didn't go back far enough.
Yeah. If you, I can also just DM you the link just in case you couldn't find it.
Oh yeah, I got it. There it is. Okay, sweet. I just wanted to have it so I can, add to saved items, even better. So that after I share it, that we can add some more feedback here.
Cool. That's perfect.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So that wraps up our regularly scheduled agenda. Does anyone else have any topics they want to flag or questions you have before we have a bit more of an abbreviated stand-up today? Sounds like no. I'm just taking a quick glance at some of the new issues on the repo to see if there's anything here that's worth flagging. Yeah, it looks like some feature requests. Looking at pull requests, it's there's some just an update on the side more just as an FYI. There's a Microsoft SQL scaler that's being merged in right now that was actually worked on by some folks at Microsoft. And then just adding authentication to a few other scalers and some tests, which I love to see. Wow, end-to-end tests. Whoever did that, they're not on the call, but Pedro is a hero. Good job, Pedro, adding some end-to-end tests. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining. As I mentioned, between the birth of children for some of our maintainers and then the babysitting of children for the other maintainers, a little bit smaller of a chat today, but still super useful. Thanks a ton, Jonathan. We will chat back again in 2 weeks and start preparing for like our annual checkpoint with the CNCF and so forth. So have a great rest of your day, everyone.